This here was my smartphone. It's no longer my smartphone. It has been to hell and back, and the digitizer's broken. It's picked up a lot of scars along the way, and now it's time to retire it. I bought a new phone, which is this phone here, the Nothing Phone 3. I bought this phone originally because I needed a good camera, and I thought it had some special features that could help me sort of get my life to a state where everything was good. That's always the promise of a new smartphone, but I quickly realized that all the special features in the world are really nothing. It's more about the special features that you have that make these things functional. So really, when it came down to it, after using the camera, I figured out that with a decent Bluetooth keyboard and this thing, I could crank out my writing. And so basically, a half of a manuscript, 80,000 words, was written on these two things. So this is going to be less a review about my old phone or the Bluetooth keyboard or my new phone, and it's more going to be a review of you and how you use these devices to get your writing done. These devices, this one specifically, as a writer's implement. I was born in 1989. Gosh, that hollows out my stomach. But I like to think of the 90s as sort of the last bastion of tech ignorance. Even at university in the 2000s, I was still heading to the library to do the bulk of my research. Google wasn't everything at that point. But later on, what it allowed is for me to be able to get access to my writing anywhere, anytime I wanted. I could just pick up a different device and pick up from exactly where I left off and just keep writing. That's kind of a miracle if you know how to use it, at least. It allowed for things like no more versions. You're not copying something, you're working on the exact same document. I would get stuck in version hell over and over and over again through university with essays and stuff, and even worse for stuff like my first novel, which I wrote on an old Toshiba satellite that was about that thick. And then what's worse is that thick-ass computer would absolutely struggle under the strain of a 500-page document. And so I take what we have now for granted sometimes. I just think about how shit and inflexible things were in the past and how easy they are now. Now, 20 years ago, I was writing in a fixed location, which would generally be my bedroom or wherever I cared to lug a stack of paper or that heavy-ass computer that would surely throw my spine out of whack. But now, the dynamic has changed fundamentally. You can write absolutely anywhere. In a coffee shop, waiting for a meeting, on lunch break at work. Well, that's a great place to, push out a few words, get that word count up for the day. But not only that, these things can actually help you concentrate. Whether you're into playing white noise or, like me, you listen to music while you're writing, it's the only sort of multitasking I can actually sort of work with. And beyond multitasking, they can also stop that altogether and make you take a break from your writing, maybe refresh your mind, go take a piss, go do whatever you need to do to keep yourself alive. Because I know with writers, we all tend to just sort of forget that we exist as human beings and are not just brains pumping out words. And they can also allow you to break out and do a little bit of research. I know that sometimes when I'm writing, I have trouble if something isn't geographically or historically semi-accurate. And so a lot of the time I can just break out, do a little bit of research, and then verify that what I'm writing is, passable, and then just out it goes, and I'm back into the writing, and my flow is regained. And you can also do stuff like share your work for review. That's something that I absolutely hate, and I feel like a lot of people will actually feel that way as well. But if you can just sort of conscript someone into being your free editor, and you can do it as simply as boom, boom, share to an email, and then you can watch their comments and edit as they're reading, that's just absolutely magical. Not that I actually want to submit my work for review. I'd much rather write in solitude for as long as is practicable. But it isn't all milk and honey. Like many things in life that seem to be great, there are trade-offs that are swift and brutal. The smartphone, yes, it is a productivity device, but there are developers out there that are mind hungry. They want your eyeballs and they want your attention. Push notifications are of the devil. Some of them wear no disguise at all and are devilishly effective, like TikTok. Duo Frickin' Lingo is an effective asshole at getting them to do your work through guilt tripping for some reason. Google News compels me to doom scroll first thing in the morning. 8 a.m. Google News will send me an email and a push notification to catch up on all the bullshit I've missed out on. Reddit. Who would have thought Reddit would just feed you up at random times of the day some bullshit that makes you just go, that seems juicy, I might read that. And then others are just annoying. Netflix can piss off, who gives a shit? Facebook, huh? And Instagram misses the mark more often than not. Notifications from Gmail are good because it reminds me to ignore it. But they all try their best, and to be honest, it's enough to knock the shine off a device like this. And that's only notifications. I mean, you can play music at the same time as you're writing, sure, but you can also play videos. And picture-in-picture is just the worst thing. I mean, podcasts, audiobooks, anything that is tempting the beast of distraction is going to be a problem, and this thing is the king of that. If temptation is in reach, for example, how much brain power do you want to divert from your writing to avoid being distracted? You'll find it's a lot more than you think. Because at some point, you may as well just watch TV. I mean, it's chewing up the same amount of time, but perhaps in a less effective way, half absorbing one thing while doing a half-assed job at another. One of the benefits is also a drawback. This work device doesn't know how to divide the line, even though there's work profiles, it doesn't know how to divide the line between work and play. It's relying on you to be a good worker bee and actually sort of stick to the tasks that are administered, but sort of nefariously, it doesn't actually want you to be good at it. It wants you to use this as much as possible, or at least that's what the app developers want. But I've been serially guilty of not knowing where the line between work and life is in the past. I mean, I did it even before the advent of the smartphone. I did this since my handwriting on notepad days. Writing in bed while in a relationship, writing on the toilet, writing at school. The smartphone came along and it was all that plus more. My ability to tune out people and life was almost too good, and this actually enabled it. And I brought up BlackBerry earlier, and this is perhaps another sticking point for these devices, is that a device like this used to be a symbol of the working person, someone who was busy, who was on the go, getting things done. But now, these are seen as distraction devices almost unanimously. And that is a fundamental flaw. If someone thinks that this is you just mucking around, then they feel like they've got license to just come up and take your time as if it's nothing. Because you're wasting your own time on this, aren't you? Now, I know I called this video in defense of the smartphone, and all I've really done is present a whole lot of, positive things that are mostly drawbacks. But I don't believe that these devices should be an issue. And regardless of your socioeconomic status, you should be able to have access to things that make productivity easier. And so, for me, with my smartphone, I've got to a point where I still get distracted a lot, but I've got systems in place that allow me to use it in the way in which I think it was intended when the advent of the smartphone first came along all those years ago. For the longest time, I've carried a Bluetooth keyboard with me. I find that they're fantastic in terms of separating your hands from the smartphone. couple that with a smartphone stand that you can just set up on a table, you're immediately putting a barrier between you and the device that sort of turns it into a laptop in a way, but a far, far less engaging one, because that screen at a readable distance, but not a enjoyable distance, is far more productive. When I used to work at channel, I would do this. I would take it to work, and on my downtime, I would, set it up and do some writing, while I worked. So I was getting paid to write in a way. I mean, hopefully they never see this video, but what are they going to do now? I've been past that company for like 2 years now. But then I go even further. I try to sit back from the device as far as comfortable, in which I can still actually read what I'm writing, even if it means like boosting the size of the text a little bit. You're able to write and use it as a screen or an external monitor as opposed to what it actually is. Black and white mode is also a beautiful bit of deliberate regression. Using that just makes videos like really boring. It's been proven with kids that like all the new videos that are coming out on YouTube now, hyper colored and lots and lots and lots of like cuts and stuff like that. It's all very, very flashy. You turn that to black and white, suddenly it's not so interesting anymore. And it's the same thing goes for your phone. Once the sheen is gone, it sort of makes you realize that the vast majority of what you consume is an absolute turd. And you can't polish a turd. Nothing is there to stop me listening to stuff while the device is turned over. I mean, for you it might be podcasts, for me it's audiobooks. And they're a huge distraction, as good as they feel in terms of like, I'm reading an audiobook, I'm not watching anything, you're still being distracted. Now this is where self-control with its big old boomer balls sort of swaggers in and said, back in my day we have self-control. No, you didn't. The only difference between you and me is access to technology. I grew up with technology changing around me, and you were old-ish before technology sort of really became a proper distraction. If you had smartphones, you would be exactly the same as me, as everyone else and every generation to follow us. Idleness does different things across technological spectrums. Where you pass the time jumping in lakes off cliffs and, destroying demonic entities in sewers, we were born into technology. Well, my generation, I think, was at the forefront of it in terms of we grew up with slow internet and slightly faster internet and better technology, and things just steadily improved throughout our lives. And the current generation, goodness, I shudder to think how difficult my kids are going to have it growing up when all they've ever known was a touchscreen. And so as we were shaped by technology, I think that at some point we need to stop accusing the technology of our own failings. You've got to have the willpower to let yourself be bored. I think that's something that we've lost in the day and age of the smartphone. These things are not going to let you be bored if they can help it. So allow yourself to be bored. Let it be the environment in which your imagination thrives. You've got to let writing be the thing that you look forward to. Too much of this will never let you look forward to it. It will always be work at that point, because there will always be something that is easier, and perhaps in the moment, at the speed in which you're writing, maybe TikTok is more interesting, but in the scope of the world that you're creating, it is definitely not. And it's definitely not more nourishing. These devices are problematic, but problems inherently have solutions. If you accept a smartphone as a necessity and stop looking for a magic bullet alternative, then suddenly the onus is entirely on you. To you, as a writer, that should be nothing new. After all, writing is as much about willpower and self-control as it is about creativity. Imagine you're going to ride a horse. You're going to want a saddle, a bridle, reins, a bit, and some spurs to correctly harness the speed and power and ability of the horse. This is the same as how you, as a writer, should choose to engage with your smartphone. Look to limit and funnel the capabilities to suit you. Choose willpower, choose simplicity, choose control, and choose boredom. Only then will the smartphone fulfill its promise.